The first thing I smelled was iodine. The second was the feeling that someone was holding my heart between their fingers. Not metaphorically, literally. Tight, precise pressure right beneath my ribs, like a gloved hand pinching a thread of me. Every breath dragged over rust, over metal. Every beat of my pulse chimed against the walls. A light flickered above me, with the stubborn will of a dying star. Drip, drip. Somewhere, water tapped iron like a metronome keeping time with my pain. I tried to sit up. The world obliged by tipping on its side and punching me in the stomach. "Don't," a voice said. "Calm, too calm. You'll tear the sutures. And I didn't steal this thread for you to ruin it in the first 5 minutes." My eyes adjusted. The room was a narrow slit of a place, sheet metal for skin, a window the size of a postcard painted black from the outside. A plastic curtain made a poor attempt at privacy, dust pooled on the floor like ash. Someone had fixed me to a metal bed with leather restraints, practical, sturdy, insulting. And over me leaned a ghost, steel gray eyes above a mask, white blonde hair tied back in a way that made the jaw look even sharper. A spotlight caught the line of his cheekbone, turned him into a sketch done with a single ruthless stroke. He smelled like antiseptic, wet stone, the breath before rain. I knew that scent. My jaw clenched so hard it made my skull ache. "Jin." The eyes didn't flinch. "That's not my name here." "Here," I repeated, letting the word tarnish, as in the rat's nest, under what used to be my city. He checked the drain line, the IV bag, the bandage over my ribs. His hands were sure and quick. Professional. My stomach hollowed at the thought. "I prefer clinic," he said. "But accuracy is important to your type." "Yes, rat's nest." He lifted my arm, turned the wrist, checked the pulse like he was timing the tide. When his fingers brushed the inside of my wrist, something beneath my skin stirred, hot and old. A prickle, a spark, then a thin, traitorous thrum at the base of my throat. No, I had buried that. I had burned it. I had watched it die with the rest of the world we'd torched. "Don't touch me," I said. "Then stop bleeding," he said, equally mild. "I can choose only one condition today." I took inventory the way I'd been trained to when the bullets were too many and the exits too few. Left rib cage, compressed gauze, long stitch pattern, hemostatic tape. Right thigh, field wrap, clean, probably debrided. Shoulder, bruised but intact. Head, ringing like a bell with a grudge. I was in nothing but a hospital gown. Someone, this man, had washed the blood out of my hair. The thought landed like a coin dropped down a well. "Where is my team?" I asked. "Not here." He didn't look up. 2 made it to the river checkpoint. The third didn't make it. A beat. "I'm sorry." The apology slid over me and didn't stick. "You expect me to believe you'd save my life?" "Expect?" He tilted his head, finally meeting my eyes. "No. I expect you to survive out of spite." The light stuttered again. Drip, drip. The room's breath was shallow, like it had learned to be quiet. He worked in silence for a minute. I watched the cogs of him turn, the precision, the economy, the way he always had, once, when he stood at my shoulder, in strategy rooms that no longer existed, laying out clean lines while I drew the blood to match them. Those rooms were piles of concrete now, those voices, gone. "You were dead," I said finally. "I read the reports. I burned the reports." Jin's mouth curved under the mask. Flattering. Posthumous attention suits me. I almost laughed, which hurt, which made me angry. "I should kill you." "By all means," he said, eyes returning to my stitches. "If you can sit up without fainting for dramatic effect, we'll stage something impressive. I'll even hand you a scalpel." He said it without heat. That was the infuriating part. He didn't plead. He didn't defend. He simply continued to do his work, like my life was a knot he'd been tasked to untangle. "Why?" I asked. It came out harsher than I intended. "Why save me?" "Because that's what I do now," he said. "I save people, even inconvenient ones." "Is that what we are to you?" I said. "Inconvenient people?" His gaze flicked to mine. Quicksilver. "Today, yes. He leaned closer to press the edge of the bandage flush. The motion brought his scent into my mouth, sharp and clean, and with it, damn it, the faintest echo of heat under my skin, a phantom line along my wrist where once there had been a mark. The mark. I willed it to remain quiet. My body, traitor that it is, hummed in defiance. Jin felt it. I saw the fractional pause in his hand. He didn't comment. Graceful of him. "You're in an isolation unit," he said, stepping back to rinse his gloves. "No one comes in without my say-so. There's a generator barely. If you hear it cough, it means we're about to be in the dark. And the restraints?" I said. "Part of the spa package?" He glanced at the leather. "You woke up trying to rip your chest open and remove the pressure dressing. I took a vote with myself and decided I liked you better intact. Untie me. Soon," he said. "Pick a vein I haven't used up with adrenaline, and I'll consider it." I hated that he made me want to smile. I hated more that my body had stopped shivering the moment his hand settled on mine. The metronome of water ticked on, patient. The light buzzed like an insect at the end of its life. He checked the monitor again, a hacked-together thing with more tape than manufacturer pride, and then did what no enemy should do. He pulled up a stool and sat, elbows on his knees, the posture of someone prepared to outwait a storm. "We were ambushed," I said. "On the bridge." "I figured." He gestured toward my ribs. "Shrapnel pattern. Bet you turned the convoy to face the threat and ate the blast head-on." "That's what we do," I said. "No," he said softly. "That's what you do." Memory unspooled, heat, noise, Cass shoving me down, the glare off broken signage, the sky a color I didn't have a word for. Then nothing. Maybe he had reached into the dark and hauled me out of it. Maybe that was a kindness I didn't deserve. "You should have left me," I said. "Perhaps." Jin's eyes were unreadable. "You'd have been quieter." "Is that a joke?" "It's a triage observation," he said. "But we can call it a joke if it helps your recovery." "Take off the mask," I said. "No. Coward." "Paranoid," he corrected. "Faces are currency down here." He stood, finally, and the light caught on the thin white seam at his wrist. A scar, old, pale, in the shape of a memory that matched my own, if I let it. I didn't. "Sleep," he said. "You're safe, for now." "I don't believe you," I said. "That's healthy," he said. "Believe the sutures instead." He moved to turn off the lamp. I heard the drip count change. The generator settle into a steadier grind. In the semi-dark, he became an outline, the same height, the same carriage, the same quiet I remembered on nights when decisions weighed more than armor. "You're supposed to be dead," I said again, softer. "So are you," he said. "We're both doing poorly at it." The corner of my mouth betrayed me. I let my eyes close because they wanted to, not because he told me to. The bed was cold, but his hands had been warm. When I breathed, iodine was still there, a hard brightness. Beneath it, a thread of something older unraveled and reached in his direction. As if the years between now and then were nothing but smoke. I would not let it not. "I'll stand," I murmured, more to myself than to him. "And when I do," he turned back, the lamp throwing a slice of gold across his mask. "Yes?" I opened my eyes just enough to meet his. "I'll finish what I started." "Good," he said, voice like the edge of a scalpel. "So will I." The clinic had a second stomach, the basement. It digested metal and oil and spat out heat. I woke to the sound of a generator coughing up rhythm, air gummy with exhaust, shelves sagging under jars of screws, coils, of wire, a plastic crate of salvaged monitors that looked like they'd been rescued from a flood and punished for it. Jin had rolled my bed down here, away from the thin walls and thinner neighbors. A plastic curtain did what it could to pretend at privacy. On the other side of it, the world was a warehouse of ghosts, broken gurneys, surgical, lamps with one eye blind, a dentist's chair that should have stayed in its grave. "You really know how to show a man a good time," I said, voice gravel. "Flattery will not earn you extra gauze," he replied without turning. He was sorting instruments into a tray, gloved hands moving with that infuriating economy, no wasted gesture, no unnecessary noise. Also, you talk too much for a patient with a hole in his side. A second figure shouldered through the curtain, compact, quick, hair shaved close, eyes like cigarette embers. He carried a box against his ribs and kicked the doorstop back into place with practiced irritation. Your alpha is loud, he told Jin. He's not my anything, Jin said. I heard that, I said. I crafted the sentence for that purpose, Jin said, and set a syringed vial on the tray. Miro, the antibiotics. And don't pretend you didn't take 2 for yourself. Miro scowled, which probably meant yes. The river checkpoint is jumpy. Patrols doubled after sunrise. Meaning? Jin asked. Meaning you're both a problem, Miro said, dropping the box on a metal cart with a hollow boom. And I'd rather problems didn't bleed on my floor. He'll mop, Jin said. I'm not mopping, I said. Perspective, living men mop, Miro said. He finally looked at me and then looked away, like I was a flare he couldn't stare into for long. How's the pain? I've had worse, I lied. Then you've had worse doctors, Miro said. He hates compliments, by the way. So try a few. Jin drew up the injection, checked the line in my hand. When his fingers brushed my skin, the old echo stirred again, a small, electric awareness at the base of my pulse. Nothing visible, everything real. Don't, I said before I could stop myself. You preferred septic shock? He asked. Noted. I'll pencil that into the discharge plan. Miro disappeared for a moment. Then I caught the rasp of his voice beyond the curtain, lowered. Their words threaded through the generator's thrum. He recognized you, Miro said. I recognized him first, Jin answered. Royce isn't stupid, Miro said. If he connects names, then I'll do what I always do, Jin said softly. Keep him alive long enough to regret it. My mouth went dry. I stared at the corrugated ceiling and saw a different roof entirely. The map room, back when roofs still meant safety. It comes in slices, the past, a table scarred by ringed coffee mugs, a city laid out, like a dissected animal beneath clear plastic, magnets pinning arteries and roads. Rain at the windows, men breathing too loud. Jin on my left, a pencil tucked behind his ear, his sleeves rolled, his handwriting a clean surgical script. Across the legend, choke points, fallback routes, bridges that would fail and bridges that could be made to. You're gambling with lives, I'd told him then. I'm calculating odds, he'd said, not flinching. If we pivot through Sector E and burn before dawn, we cut their supply chain at the joint. If we don't, we bleed for 3 extra days and we still end up here. Here had been a street where the rain burned. We bled anyway. Jin's shadow moved, the curtain sighed back into place. He set a hand at my shoulder to adjust the sling, professional, impersonal. The way he would touch a broken instrument he intended to use again. I didn't think I'd live long enough to watch you save me, I said. He didn't miss a beat. I didn't think I'd live long enough to regret it. Miro groaned. Great, you two can flirt later. Right now, we need to decide if we move him before nightfall. We don't, Jin said. He needs 12 more hours on the drip. And the streets will be hungry after dark. Someone followed you from the bridge, Miro said, softer. Smelled strange, like the docks, like tin. Cass had smelled like gun oil and winter. Not Cass, I said. No, Miro agreed. Tin, not ice. Jin's eyes flicked to mine. He didn't ask why that mattered. He filed it away, the same way he always had, into some inner ledger where my instincts earned interest. He cleaned the line on my ribs, and I watched the way he kept turning his, face a little aside, angling the light so it wouldn't catch him full on. He moved like a man who expected a camera he couldn't see, like a man who had learned the cost of being recognized. You're jumpy, I said. I'm precise, he said. You're hiding, I said. He taped the end of the dressing and finally looked at me straight on. You're observant. That used to be a compliment between us, I said. That used to be between us, he said, the faintest edge under the even tone. Now it's between you and your sutures. Miro snorted. He's not wrong. The generator stumbled, regained its balance. A soft rain began somewhere above, tapping the building like a polite intruder. Jin checked his watch, then my pupils, then the clockwork of the IV drip. He never stopped moving unless he had to. If the patrols double again, Miro said from the doorway, I'll bribe the checkpoint with the good gauze. We'll be down to rags and prayers. We've done more with less, Jin said. Yeah, I muttered. And look how well that turned out. He wiped his gloves clean, pitched them, and leaned his hip against the cart, studying me the way I studied battlefields. Something in his gaze softened, not enough to name. We're alive, he said. For now. That's the metric. Is that what we're calling it? I asked. Living? It's the only definition that keeps choosing us, Jin said. He reached for the lamp, paused, and then, almost as an afterthought, if you try to stand again, I'll sedate you. You'll try, I said. He considered that, head tilting, a tiny, infuriating smile ghosting his eyes. No, I'll succeed. Your pulse gives you away 2 seconds before every bad idea. Old habit, I said. Old partnership, he corrected, voice quiet. Then he killed the light, leaving the generator to count the seconds and the rain to measure the distance between what we were and whatever came next. Morning crawled in slow, pale threads through the cracks of the boarded window. Rainwater clung to the glass, refracting the light into a tired kind of gold. The city above still groaned, a low mechanical heartbeat muffled by concrete. But down here, in the basement ward, everything had gone still. Even the generator seemed to hold its breath. I woke to the sound of fabric moving. Jin was at the far side of the room, unrolling fresh bandages on a steel tray. His hair was damp, darkened by rain, and the sleeves of his undershirt were pushed up to his elbows. His hands worked without hurry, steady, silent. For a long moment, I just watched him. Something about the angle of his shoulders, familiar, stubborn, dragged at the edge of memory. The war had stripped a lot of things from me. Patience, mercy, faith. But not that outline, not the way he never looked at you until he chose to. Morning, he said without turning. Still alive? Apparently, I said. Much to your disappointment, I'm sure. He hummed, non-committal. Don't tempt me to reevaluate. The light shifted as he crossed to the bed. He was reaching for my chart when his sleeve slipped lower. I saw it, barely a ghost at first, then clear as a knife-cut, pale raised skin curling into the pattern I'd sworn was gone forever. A spiral broken by 2 lines, sharp as the teeth of a wolf. The mark of my pack. My mark. My pulse stumbled. Where did you get that? Jin froze. His eyes lifted to mine, unreadable. What? Don't, I said. I know what I'm looking at. He glanced down as if only now realizing what I'd seen, then tugged the sleeve back into place. It's nothing. Old scar. The wars gave everyone a few. That's not a scar, I said. That's a claim. It's a brand then, he said evenly. One of many. Don't read poetry into it. Poetry? My voice rasped. That's my mark, Jin. He flinched, so slight I almost missed it. You're mistaken. Am I? I caught his wrist before he could step away. Skin to skin. The world tilted. Heat bloomed where our hands met, small at first, then spreading like ink through water. The air changed. Metal and ozone and something older, something that had once meant home. The faint lines beneath his skin stirred, shimmered, then flared in silver light. Jin hissed through his teeth. The glow traced the veins of his wrist, the ridges of his palm, up the thin bones of his arm. His breath hitched. I didn't let go. The light traveled, answering something deep under my own skin, an ache I hadn't felt in years. My heartbeat matched his for a second too long, and when I finally tore my hand back, the afterimage of the mark still pulsed behind my eyes. What the hell was that? I whispered. He turned away, shoulders tight. Residual energy. The body keeps echoes, especially after trauma. Don't feed me doctrine, I said. It recognized me. Don't flatter yourself, he said, but his voice cracked on the last word. I stared at him. You were part of my unit, my pack. Why lie? He busied himself with the tray. the clatter of metal covering the silence between us. Because it's easier than the truth. And the truth is that the marks don't fade like they're supposed to. He flexed his fingers, wincing as the glow ebbed. That sometimes they remember. A pulse throbbed in my ribs, a phantom burn where my own mark lay buried beneath scar tissue. You should have told me. He laughed under his breath, dry, humorless. And what would you have done? Thanked me for still carrying the ghost of your war on my skin? I said nothing. The rain made small, deliberate sounds against the glass, like someone tapping to be let in. Jin finally looked at me. His pupils were blown wide, rimmed with the fading silver of the mark. There was anger there, and fear, and something older than both. Your mark, he said quietly, still knows me. Even if you don't. The words landed heavy. The air felt too thin for breathing. He stepped back before I could speak, pulling the curtain between us like a shield. The faint scent of antiseptic lingered, sharp, clean, merciless. I stared at my own hand. The skin there still tingled, lines of silver fading back into flesh, as if the world had briefly remembered something it wasn't supposed to. Outside, the city exhaled steam. Inside, the generator coughed once and settled again, like a heart reminding itself to beat. And for the first time since the bridge, I didn't know whose heartbeat I was hearing, mine or his. The first explosion hit just after dawn. It wasn't the kind of sound that belonged underground, too wide, too hungry. The walls shuddered. A cascade of dust rained from the ceiling. For a split second, the generator roared louder, as if trying to fight the blast, then died altogether. Down. Jin shoved me off the cot before I could argue. The floor met my shoulder like a brick to the ribs, and pain tore through my side. My stitches burned. Another detonation, this one closer. The light flickered once, and went out. Somewhere above us, Miro shouted, "They found us!" No time to ask who they were. The clinic was a maze of steel and concrete, but it wasn't built to withstand a siege. Shadows ran down the corridor, fast, coordinated. Whoever was coming knew the layout. Jin grabbed a small med pack, his movements sharp and efficient. "Can you walk?" "I'll run if I have to." "Good," he said. "Because we have to." Miro appeared in the doorway, breathing hard, a pistol in one hand and a cracked datapad in the other. His shirt was torn, blood streaking one sleeve. "North corridor's gone," he said. "They came through the drainage tunnels." "Which means they knew the coordinates," Jin murmured. He looked at me. The implication didn't need words. I grimaced. "You think it was one of mine?" "Let's survive first," he said. "Then we can assign blame." Miro tossed him a small flashlight. 2 blocks west. The subway tunnels still hold. I'll buy you time." "You're not coming?" I asked. "Someone has to lock the exits behind you," Miro said, already turning. "And someone has to make sure they chase the wrong ghosts." Jin's jaw flexed. "Don't." But Miro was already gone, swallowed by smoke and gunfire. We ran. The stairwell stank of rust and rot. I leaned on the rail, every step sending knives through my side. Jin stayed ahead of me, light cutting a narrow path through the dark. The air was heavy with soot, the kind that clings to lungs and memories alike. We burst into daylight, or what passed for it in this city. The clinic's back entrance opened into a corridor of collapsed buildings. Skeletons of glass and concrete leaning against each other like drunks. The sky was a gray bruise. Jin stopped just long enough to pull a folded map from his jacket. The thing looked older than both of us, creased and faded. "You still carry that?" I asked. "Paper doesn't glitch," he said. "Keep up." He took a left, down a street half swallowed by rubble. The once busy avenue was now a corridor of shadows, burnt cars, broken street lamps, walls tattooed with graffiti and warning symbols. Somewhere distant, sirens sang to each other like wolves. We moved through the ruins, and every sound felt too loud. The crunch of gravel, my uneven breathing, his quiet urgency. "Whoever hit us," I said finally. "They weren't scavengers. They moved like trained units." "I noticed," he said. "Then stop pretending this is random." He didn't answer, just adjusted his pace so I could keep up. The silence stretched until I filled it myself. "It's someone inside my ranks," I said. Cass, maybe. Jin's tone was dry. Cass, the loyal one who almost shot you for saving a civilian? Exactly, I said. He snorted. Then yes. Definitely him. We reached the old bridge by midday. The water below was a sheet of gray glass, dotted with debris. What used to be a checkpoint was now just twisted metal and a half-sunken transport truck. Jin crouched by the railing, scanning the far side. No movement. They'll assume we went south. How sure are you? I asked. He glanced over his shoulder. I'm still breathing. That's usually a good indicator. The corner of my mouth twitched before I could stop it. If you die on me, I'll hold it against you. He arched an eyebrow. How sweet. Even enemies have standards. High ones, I said. I can tell, he muttered. We crossed the bridge slowly, keeping low. The wind carried the scent of rain and rust. My head throbbed with each heartbeat. Jin walked a few paces ahead, his shoulders tense, gaze flicking constantly between cover and horizon. Every time he stopped to check the map, I caught the faint shimmer of the mark beneath his sleeve, a reminder, unwelcome and magnetic. By the time we reached the tunnel entrance, my legs were trembling. Jin stopped, crouched beside me, and pressed 2 fingers to my pulse. Still human, he said. Debatable. We'll rest soon, he promised. Since when do you make promises? Since you started bleeding on every surface I own. We ducked into the subway tunnel. The air was cold and damp, thick with echoes. Rusted tracks vanished into blackness. He led us through a side passage, up a flight of emergency stairs that spat us into the shell of a hotel, its roof half collapsed, lobby carpet buried under dust. This'll do, Jin said, scanning the room. Your idea of luxury's gone downhill. Welcome to the apocalypse, he said, and dropped his bag. He started setting up a makeshift cot near the window frame, where a strip of sky leaked through. I leaned against the wall, catching my breath. The silence that settled wasn't comfortable, but it wasn't hostile either. Something about the space between us had shifted. No longer a battlefield, not yet safe ground. Jin tossed me a canteen. Drink. Slowly. I obeyed, because I was too tired to argue. Outside, thunder rolled over the ruins like the memory of a war that refused to end. I looked at him, his silhouette against the fading light, his hair catching, the dull orange of fire somewhere far off, and thought, not, for the first time, that I couldn't decide whether he was my enemy, my debt, or the last familiar thing left in this broken city. The room smelled of dust, ozone, and rain-soaked plaster. Somewhere inside the walls, water dripped a slow rhythm. The cracked mirror above the dresser threw back a crooked reflection of us, 2 ghosts who hadn't decided yet whether they were alive or not. Night had settled like a bruise. The air was thick, humming faintly with static. It started as a fever. At first, I thought it was just exhaustion, the kind that crawls under your skin after too many days without sleep. But then the heat came sharper, spreading down my spine, pooling behind my ribs. The mark under the bandages pulsed once, twice, then caught rhythm with my heartbeat. Jin noticed before I said anything. Your temperature's spiking, he said, kneeling beside the makeshift cot. His voice had that clipped precision he used to disguise concern. Lie still. I'm fine. You're lying, he said simply. Badly. The world swam in and out of focus. My skin felt too tight. Every breath scraped my throat raw. When I tried to sit up, he pressed a hand to my chest. The contact burned, but not from the fever. Stop fighting me, Royce, he said. You're overheating because of the mark. It's reacting. To what? To proximity. He didn't have to explain. The air between us already knew. Jin's face was close enough that I could see the tiny scar just under his jaw. The one I remembered from before, back when we were both idiots with something to believe in. His eyes caught the weak light from the broken window, gray, edged with silver, like storm clouds before they break. He reached for a cloth and wet it from the canteen. The water was cold. His hands were not. When he pressed it to my neck, the relief almost hurt. Breathe, he said. Slowly. That an order or advice? Whichever gets results. The fever climbed higher anyway. My pulse stuttered. Somewhere under my ribs, the old bond, the mark that tied us once, stirred awake. "Jin," I said, and the word came out more like a plea than a name. He hesitated. His hand hovered, then brushed my shoulder. The mark responded instantly, a soft glow crawling under his sleeve and spilling faint light across my chest. He froze. "Damn it," he whispered. The heat in my skin shifted, less agony now, more ache, a wrong kind of comfort. I could feel every heartbeat of his through that single point of contact, every echo of something that should have been dead. "It's feeding on contact," he said, voice low. "I can draw the excess off, but what? It'll hurt," he said. "Or worse, it won't." He pressed his palm flat over my chest. The glow deepened, a faint silver blue that painted the room like moonlight through smoke. I clenched my fists but didn't move. The connection flared. Heat, electricity, memory. The bridge at night, the command tent, the sound of him laughing through static. The mark remembered every moment my mind had tried to bury. He drew in a sharp breath. His other hand steadied against my ribs. I felt him tremble. "Still think it's just proximity?" I asked, voice unsteady. "Still think you should shut up?" he muttered. We stayed like that for what could have been seconds or years. The glow pulsed once more, then faded, leaving only the faint imprint of his hand. My fever broke with it. When I opened my eyes, he was still too close. His hair brushed my cheek, his breath ghosted across my mouth. For a fraction of a moment, we weren't soldiers, weren't enemies, just two people standing too close to the fire, hoping it would burn clean. He looked at me like he wanted to speak, and I almost made the same mistake. The air between us shifted, too fragile, too heavy. Then he stood. "Rest," he said, voice back to steady. "You'll live." "You sure?" I managed. "If you die, I'll have wasted a very good compress." He turned away, busying himself with the supplies, and didn't see me watching him. The silver light had faded from his skin, but I knew it was still there, buried deep, the same way mine was. He didn't say anything more that night. I don't think he trusted himself to, and when I finally drifted off, I heard him move to the window, whispering something to the dark city beyond. Maybe a prayer, maybe a warning. "Don't believe again," I thought I heard him say. "Don't you dare." The morning came pale and brittle. Jin was already awake, brewing bitter-smelling tea over a small burner he'd salvaged. His sleeves were rolled up, his hair a mess, eyes ringed with exhaustion. "Good morning, doctor," I said hoarsely. He shot me a sidelong look, patient alive, sarcastic, prognosis unchanged. I sat up, stretching the stiffness from my shoulders. "You ever realize your bedside manner qualifies as psychological warfare?" He handed me a mug. "Drink." "It's hot." I took a sip, grimaced. "Now you're just torturing me." He allowed himself a faint smile. "Now you're recovering. We didn't mention the night before, didn't mention the mark, or the heat, or the almost that lingered in the air. Outside, the city groaned awake beneath the weight of another day. Inside, the silence between us said everything we weren't ready to admit. The rain came first, hard, relentless, drumming against the tin roof of the old warehouse like a warning. We'd left the hotel before dawn, following a rumor of a safe passage east. By noon, the storm had swallowed the city, and the alleys bled into rivers. Now, hours later, we hid in the basement of a half-collapsed freight depot, the air thick with oil and mildew. It was too quiet. That kind of quiet that always comes before a bullet. Jin was checking our supplies. 3 bandages, half a bottle of antiseptic, and a packet of dried ration bars that might have been food once. I was leaning against the wall, counting the cracks, pretending the room didn't spin every time I breathed too deep. "Still with me?" he asked, not looking up. "Barely." "That's enough," he said. "Barely is still alive." The door above us creaked. Then came the sound. Soft, deliberate. Boots on wet concrete. Too many. Jin's head snapped toward the stairs. They found us. The first shot split the silence. It hit the wall inches from his shoulder, throwing up a spray of dust. Jin didn't hesitate. He grabbed my arm, yanked me to the floor, and returned fire with the pistol Miro had left behind. "Go," he barked. I can fight. You can barely stand. He shoved me toward a row of crates, then darted the other way, drawing their attention. Gunfire tore through the dark, the muzzle flashes painting the walls in brief, violent light. I crawled behind cover, pressing a hand to my ribs. The old wound screamed with every movement. One of the hunters climbed down the stairs, a tall man in scavenged armor, his insignia scratched off. His eyes were feral. End of the line, General, he sneered. Before I could raise my weapon, Jin appeared behind him, silent as smoke. The scalpel flashed once. The man went down. Move, Jin yelled. There'll be more. We stumbled through the back corridor, water dripping from broken pipes above. I could feel the heat of pursuit behind us, their shouts, the echo of boots. We reached a dead end, a rusted door half-welded shut. Jin kicked it until the hinges screamed and the metal gave way. Outside, rain, open ground, no cover. Perfect, I muttered. Run, he said. We ran. The rain was cold enough to sting. My breath came in short, ragged bursts. The pain in my side turned sharp and hot, but Jin didn't slow down, didn't let go. He half-dragged me into another building, a storage shed clinging to the skeleton of the old docks. He slammed the door behind us and shoved a beam into place. The echo of boots faded outside, replaced by thunder. For a long time, the only sound was the rain. Jin turned to me, chest heaving, water dripping from his hair. There was blood on his sleeve. Not mine this time. You're hit, I said. It's nothing. It's bleeding. Then it's nothing with style. I tried to laugh. It came out as a cough. My vision blurred again, and the room tilted. Jin was beside me in an instant, catching me before I hit the ground. He lowered me against the wall, his hands steady despite the tremor in his shoulders. The mark on his wrist, our mark, was faintly visible again, pulsing with each heartbeat. Why? I asked, breath ragged. Why do you keep doing this? Doing what? Saving me? He looked away, jaw tight. For the first time, the calm mask slipped. I saw the exhaustion under it, the fear, the something deeper that didn't have a name. Because someone, he said quietly, has to remember what it feels like to be human. I stared at him. You think I forgot? He didn't answer. The silence between us said enough. Outside, the rain hammered harder, drowning the city. I realized my hand had found his wrist, steadying him as much as myself. The contact was grounding, real, human, not strategy, not survival, just instinct. He didn't pull away. For a moment, there was no war, no sides, no debt, just two people breathing the same air and pretending it meant something more than weakness. When I finally found my voice again, it came out low. If you're the enemy, I said, then I don't want friends. His eyes met mine, sharp and unreadable, but softer than they should have been. That's the most honest thing you've said since I found you. Thunder rolled overhead, and I thought I saw him smile, a ghost of it, gone as soon as it came. He leaned back against the wall beside me, both of us staring at the flicker of lightning through the cracks. After a while, he said, the hunters knew where to look. That's not luck, which means someone's feeding them intel, I said. Jin nodded slowly. Cass, probably. I swallowed the bitterness. He's the only one who'd gain from me dying. Then we find him, Jin said, and we make him talk. His tone was calm, but his hands were still shaking. Mine were too. Outside, the storm began to fade, leaving behind only the drip of rain through. The holes in the roof, steady, patient, like a heartbeat that refused to quit. For now, that was enough. The headquarters of the Black Shards had once been a bank for the rich. Now it was a fortress with a grudge, steel ribs welded over broken glass, flags stitched from salvaged tarps snapping in the wind. The lobby smelled like old money and new metal. Wolves had traded ledgers for rifles and kept the marble floors because intimidation and taste are not mutually exclusive. We came in through the service entrance, me walking like I owned the place, Jin a step behind. In a medic's jacket 2 sizes too big, mask up, head down, the picture of anonymous competence. My ribs ached, but I didn't let the ache show. Alphas were watching. My alphas. Their eyes tracked me like searchlights, counting stitches, counting weakness, counting the stranger in my shadow. "General," someone said. Relief and suspicion knotted tight. Nods followed. "Salutes." A whisper that moved like smoke. "Ambush. Bridge. Alive." Alive was complicated. Jin kept pace without looking at anyone. He carried a kit over one shoulder, the strap digging into his collarbone. He'd tucked his pale hair under a cap, but he couldn't hide the way he moved, efficient, surgical. A man who knew where everything was supposed to fit and resented anything that didn't. We reached the elevator shaft, gutted long ago, now a metal staircase spiraling up the spine of the building. I took the steps steady, counting breaths. Jin stayed one tread behind, close enough to catch me if I fell, far enough that no one would accuse him of presumption. On the 12th floor, the corridor narrowed into a gauntlet of glances. The soundscape changed here. Fewer rifles, more radios. The air smelled like coffee and gun oil, fear and ambition. Cass was waiting outside the operations room. He wore his uniform like a promise, pressed, immaculate black fabric that drank the light. A thin white scar crossed his bottom lip, souvenir of a night we didn't talk about. He took me in with one sweep. Bandages, fatigue, the way my hand hovered a fraction too close to the wall. Then his gaze slid to Jin and sharpened. "General," he said, "brought a souvenir from the Undercity?" "Medic," I said. "On loan." Cass's mouth twitched. How generous of them. His eyes returned to me, grinding. "Rumors say you were down for hours. That accurate?" "I'm here," I said. "That's accurate. And the others?" he asked. He knew. He wanted to hear me say it. "Two made it to the river," I said. "One didn't." Cass clicked his tongue like I'd disappointed him on a test he designed to be failed. The hunters moved like they'd rehearsed this place. "They had help," I said, letting the words sit. "Inside help." A pause. "Not long. Calculated. We'll investigate." "We will," I agreed, and felt Jin's attention flick like a pulse at my shoulder. Cass stepped closer. He was taller by a hair and liked to use it. "A lot of eyes on you, sir," he murmured. "They're wondering if the bridge did more than cut you open." "They'll live with the wonder," I said. "Will they?" His gaze promised knives. "Everything ends when you say the word." The hallway thinned around us until it was just breath and challenge. I heard myself answer before I decided to. "And will you believe me if I say, I don't want it to end?" It surprised us both. The admission. Cass's expression didn't break, but I saw the flicker behind it, a flare, then ice. "Careful, General," he said softly. "Words bind." "So do lies," I said. He leaned back, polite again. "We'll debrief at 1600. His glance grazed Jin, dismissive. "Keep your loaned assets out of strategic spaces. Try and make me," Jin didn't say. He simply dropped his gaze like a professional and became furniture. Cass lost interest, because Cass's world had room for threats and trophies, not puzzles. Inside ops, the room hummed with static and maps. Screens were patched from 3 different centuries, but the city still bled the same when you moved the pieces wrong. I pointed, asked for status, triaged fires. Jin drifted to the edge of the table and became a shadow with a pulse. Silent, close, the gravity I pretended not to orbit. Whispers leaked through the glass walls like cold, that I'd gone soft, that an Omega from the Undercity had patched me together and maybe rearranged the parts. Alphas are connoisseurs of dominance and scent. They could smell a change even if they didn't have the language for it. Pride kept my back straight. Habit kept my voice ironed flat. When the briefing broke, I sent most of them to their tasks. Cass left last, nodding to the rank and not to me. The door whispered shut. A new presence slid into the gap he left. Perfume like smoke and mint. Bracelets that didn't quite stop jingling even when she stood still. "Einel," I said. The information broker owned the Undercity's rumor market and half its conscience. She wore it like a crown. Dark eyes, crooked smile, a coat that had once been a dress. She didn't look at me. She looked past me, to the medic who wasn't a medic. "Doctor," she said lightly. Your posture is too proud for a man on loan. Jin didn't react, which is how I knew he reacted. Enel's smile sharpened. She flicked a card onto the table. Thin, laminated, the kind smugglers use to write prayers in code. A social call, she said. And an answer to a question you haven't asked yet. What question? I said. The one about why your building creaks like a stage before a coup, she said, finally turning to me. Tonight. Stairwell teams on 8 and 14. Fire alarms disabled on 3. And someone with a good haircut will be on your balcony with a speech prepared if you fall. Cass, I said. Does he have a good haircut? Inel asked, faux innocent. Jin's gaze brushed mine. Brief, bright, gone. He kept his mask up. He didn't need words for me to hear him. We move, now. I slid the card into my pocket. What do you want? A city that doesn't starve, she said. And for the two of you to stop pretending this isn't personal. It's insulting to my intelligence. She turned to go, then paused, looking at Jin as if peering through fogged glass. Careful, ghost, she said softly. They're hunting names as much as men. Her bracelets chimed. She vanished into the corridor's murmurs. For a moment, only the map lights breathed. Jin spoke first, low. We have hours, maybe less. Then we use them, I said. I looked at him, his mask, his eyes, the stubborn line of his shoulders, and felt the room tilt not from pain but from choice. Pride kept me standing. Fear of exposure kept him small. Both of us were tired of pretending. Stay close, I said. He nodded once. Try and make me, he didn't say. We left the ops room together. Outside, the flags snapped against the building like warnings, and above them the sky darkened, as if the city already knew it was about to watch itself burn again. Night fell like an executioner's hood. The Black Shard's headquarters was a carcass of steel and shadows, its upper floors lit by torches and emergency lamps. The generator had died hours ago. The air smelled of dust, oil, and the nervous sweat of men waiting for orders they didn't understand. I stood in the operations room, tracing the lines on the map with a gloved finger. The city's veins glowed faintly on the hollow surface. Jin moved at the edges of the room, silent as breath, checking supplies and exits. The others avoided looking at him for too long, some instinct they didn't want to name. Cass entered, without knocking. His smile was professional, his eyes were not. General, he said, too smoothly. A word? The men straightened. Jin glanced up but said nothing. I nodded toward the hall. Make it quick. Cass followed me out to the balcony, a skeletal platform overlooking the ruined city. Wind whipped the flags above us, the torchlight flaring against the glass shards embedded in the walls. You've been busy, he said, moving pieces, whispering to ghosts. You think we don't notice? If I wanted to hide things from you, I said, you wouldn't notice at all. He smiled tightly. Maybe I already have. He moved closer. The torchlight caught the faint shimmer of metal under his sleeve, an injector, small and sharp. I saw it too late. The hiss was quiet. The pain wasn't. My vision snapped white. The world tilted. Something burned under my ribs, the mark flaring like a brand. Cass stepped back, watching. You shouldn't have come back, Royce. The pack deserves a leader who still remembers what he's fighting for. I tried to reach for my weapon, but my arm refused to obey. The serum was working fast, paralytic, probably engineered by the black market. I fell to one knee, and then a gunshot cracked through the air. Cass staggered, shoulder blooming red. Jin was at the doorway, weapon raised, no hesitation in his stance. His mask was gone. His face was pale in the torchlight, eyes burning like frostfire. Step away from him, Jin said. Cass laughed, coughing blood. So it's true. You brought him back from the dead, the traitor and his pet Omega. Tell me, does he even remember who you are? Jin's jaw tightened. Enough. He fired again. Cass ducked behind the steel column. Bullets sparked against concrete. The others in the corridor shouted, half drawing weapons, half frozen by confusion. Jin. I tried, voice raw. He was already moving. The firefight erupted, short, brutal, echoing off the walls. Cass's men rushed in from both sides. but Jin moved through them like water cutting through stone. Clean, efficient, merciless. When the last shot fell, the room stank of gunpowder and iron. Cass stumbled forward, half alive, blood streaking his collar. "You think saving him makes you one of us again?" He spat. "You'll burn with him." He raised the gun. Jin stepped between us. The shot hit him square in the chest. For a heartbeat, there was no sound. Then the mark ignited. The light burst from beneath his skin, silver, blinding, alive. It raced up his arm, across his throat, coiling around his wrist like living fire. The same pattern flared on my chest, answering it. The pack mark. The bond we'd buried. The truth no one had been supposed to see. Every alpha in the room froze. Even Cass did, eyes wide in disbelief. "Impossible," he whispered. Jin swayed, still on his feet, his eyes glowing faintly through the pain. "Not impossible," he said hoarsely. "Just forgotten." He turned toward me and collapsed. I caught him before he hit the floor. The light from our marks pulsed in sync, throwing long, jagged shadows across the walls. My throat locked. "You idiot," I said, pressing my hand over the wound. "You weren't supposed to." His breath came shallow. "You still give orders like you expect obedience." "Stay with me," I said. He smiled weakly. "I'm here." His gaze flicked down to the twin marks burning between us. "We always were." Cass staggered closer, gun shaking in his hand. "You're both ghosts. And ghosts don't lead packs." He lifted the weapon again. This time, I didn't hesitate. I stood, turned, and fired once. The shot hit him clean through the chest. Cass fell backward into the light of the torches, eyes still open, surprise etched into the last of him. Silence returned, thick, absolute. The others watched, waiting for orders, but all I could hear was Jin's breathing, faint, slowing. I knelt beside him. The glow of the marks was fading now, silver sinking back into skin. His blood was warm under my fingers, and for the first time in years, so was the air around me. "I remember," I said quietly. "I remember who you were to me." His lips moved, barely sound. Then, "Don't forget again." His eyes fluttered closed. The mark gave one last pulse and went still. For a long moment, no one moved. The torches hissed. The rain outside hit the metal roof in a low, steady rhythm. I stood, slow, deliberate. "Get me medics," I said. Now, no one questioned me. When I looked down again, Jin was pale, but the faint light under his skin still flickered, stubborn and alive. Outside, thunder rolled across the city, and for the first time, it didn't sound like war. It sounded like absolution. Dawn came slow, like a promise it wasn't sure it could keep. The city was quiet for the first time in months. No gunfire, no alarms. Just the low hum of wind moving through the skeletons of towers. From my office window, the world looked rinsed clean. The fires were out, or maybe I'd simply run out of ways to see them. I stood by the window, bandaged hand resting on the glass, watching. Smoke curl off the far rooftops like ghosts that refused to leave. My reflection looked older, or maybe it had just stopped pretending otherwise. Behind me, the door creaked. "Still alive then," Jin said, voice soft, still a little raw. I turned. He stood in the doorway, pale, tired, alive. A blanket was draped loosely around his shoulders, the medtech uniform, replaced by a clean shirt someone had probably bullied him into wearing. The mark on his wrist, our mark, was faint now, just a trace of silver under skin. "You should be resting," I said. "I tried," he said, crossing the room. The bed complained. About what? About being alone. I couldn't help the small laugh that escaped me. "You're impossible, so I've been told," he said, lowering himself carefully into the chair opposite my desk. "And you look like a man rehearsing goodbyes." Should I be worried? I hesitated, then sat down across from him. No. Relieved, maybe. He tilted his head. "That's not your usual brand of honesty." "I'm done with usual," I said. "Cass is dead. The shards are in pieces, and the city's had enough of warlords pretending to be saviors. It's time I stopped pretending too. Jin watched me for a long moment. You're stepping down. I'm passing command, I said. Someone else can lead. Someone who still believes in the idea of a pack. And you? I'll learn what it's like to be just one man again. I smiled faintly. Feels overdue. He leaned back, eyes half-lidded, the light catching on his cheekbones. So what happens to me? You keep breathing, I said, preferably near somewhere with better coffee. Ah, he said. So I'm demoted to barista. Think of it as a promotion. Fewer bullets. He chuckled, low and warm. The sound filled the room in a way that made it feel less like a bunker and more like a place meant for living. After a moment, he said, So now I'm your personal doctor? Only if you prescribe me sleeping pills when I start giving orders again. That can be arranged, he said dryly. A lethal dose, if necessary. Generous as always. The silence that followed wasn't heavy. It was something gentler, something that existed between people who had survived too much to need more words. I reached into the drawer and pulled out the small blade, ceremonial, nothing fancy but sharp enough. Jin watched as I rolled my sleeve back, exposing the faded mark. The last echo of the bond we'd shared. What are you doing? He asked quietly. Finishing what we started, I said. The blade kissed skin. A thin line of light traced the edge of the mark, splitting it cleanly in two. No pain, just heat and release. Half of the mark dimmed, fading into nothing. The other half glowed briefly, alive, then vanished beneath Jin's wrist like a heartbeat swallowed by flesh. He stared at it, then at me. You're giving it back. I'm giving it to you, I said. You don't owe me anything anymore. He exhaled slowly, as if something inside him finally unclenched. And you? I'll keep the scar, I said. As proof, I once had something worth losing. He smiled, small and unguarded. You're terrible at goodbyes, you know. I'm better at not dying, I said. That's debatable. I laughed quietly. He did too, and for a heartbeat, the sound of it felt like the start of something new. The city beyond the glass caught the sun, weak and yellow, but still light. Jin stood, the blanket slipping from his shoulders. If you're leaving, you'll need a place to go, he said. I thought I might let you decide that, I said. Dangerous choice. Wouldn't be the first. He stepped close enough that I could feel the warmth of him. Then we'll see where the roads still lead. He turned toward the door, paused, and looked back. Royce, he said. Yeah? Try not to start another war. No promises, I said. But I'll aim lower. He smiled again, soft this time, and left. I watched him go, then turned back to the window. The world was still cracked, still bleeding light through its seams, but for the first time, I could breathe without the weight of armor pressing on my chest. Ash and breath, endings and beginnings, all of it, finally, felt human. The clinic smelled different now, not of blood or antiseptic or desperation, but of soap, tea, and life. The broken lamps had been replaced with real ones, their light warm instead of sterile. The old rusted shelves were scrubbed clean, lined with jars, bandages, and little things Jin insisted on organizing alphabetically. Outside the cracked windows, the market hummed, a messy chorus of merchants and engines and laughter. The war felt like something that had happened in another lifetime. Maybe it had. Jin was at the central table, sleeves rolled up, a strip of sunlight cutting across his back. He was stitching a wound on a young beta's arm, his tone calm and dry as ever. If you move again, he said to the boy, I'll start charging by the flinch. The boy laughed nervously but stayed still. Across the room, Miro was restocking supplies, humming off-key. You realize, he said loudly enough for everyone to hear, that since your guest decided to stay, we've had triple the patients. Not because people are hurt, because they want to see the alpha with the bandages. Jin didn't look up. Good. Maybe we'll finally afford new gauze. Miro grinned. Oh, sure. But you can't tell me you don't like having a bodyguard who fixes the roof between patients. I was on that roof, actually, hammering the last nail into place. The rain from last night had loosened one of the metal sheets. It was the kind of quiet work that left space to breathe. When I climbed down, my hands smelled of rust and rain, and my shoulders didn't ache the way command used to make them. Speak of the devil, Miro said, nodding at me. Your watchdog's here. Watchdogs bark, Jin said. He's too dignified for that. Give it time, I said, stepping inside. Ainel was leaning against the counter, smirking as always. Her bracelets chimed when she waved. Look at this domestic paradise, she said. The great Royce, fetching tools, carrying crates, making himself useful. I almost don't recognize you. Almost? I asked. Don't get smug, she said. Rumor is you even smile now. Scandalous behavior for a former warlord. Careful, Jin said mildly. He might relapse. Miro snorted. If he does, at least we have enough sedatives this time. The laughter rolled easy, soft, the kind that fills the spaces where fear used to live. Outside, thunder grumbled distantly over the horizon, but here, everything felt still. Jin finished the stitches, tied them off, and cut the thread with surgical precision. He handed the boy a wrapped bandage. Change it in 2 days, he said. And tell your friends I'm not running a charity. You are, Miro said under his breath. Shut up, Jin said. But there was no bite in it. The boy left smiling. The clinic settled again. For a while, it was just the hum of the market outside and the steady rhythm of rain starting up on the windows. I moved closer to the table, handing Jin a towel. He took it without looking up. Still overworking yourself, I said. Still lecturing me, he replied. That's how habits survive the apocalypse. He glanced at me then, a small, reluctant smile. And here I thought we'd finally broken the cycle. Not all cycles are bad, I said. He looked at me for a long moment, the kind of look that said more than it should. Then he turned back to cleaning his instruments. His voice softer. You know, people keep asking if you're my shadow or my bodyguard. And what do you tell them? That you're a very bad nurse, he said. I laughed. Fair. The rain deepened outside, tapping like a heartbeat on the roof. Jin set down the towel and reached for his coat. I need to check the East Market before the stalls close, he said. I'll come with you. I don't need protection. I didn't say you did. He sighed, not in annoyance this time, but something closer to acceptance. Fine. But you're carrying the supplies. We stepped outside together. The market was alive with color and noise, steam rising from food stalls, vendors shouting prices, the smell of wet bread and coffee in the air. The rain had started again, thin and cool. We walked through it without hurrying, shoulders brushing, steps matching. He said quietly, You know I'm still not yours. I know, I said. That's what makes it real. He smiled, faint but genuine, and didn't pull away when our hands brushed once, twice, and stayed that way. The city breathed around us, wet and alive and full of second chances. I'm not of his pack, I thought, watching him laugh at something Miro shouted from the clinic door. But maybe, just maybe, he's finally part of mine.